Okay, now we are ready for Lynette to come back for us. Oh, okay. You guys are still here, all right. So when I put this presentation together, I actually did it for an accounting association. So there's an accounting association in Albuquerque, and the gentleman was sharing with me that 79% of their audit findings are related to procurement. What do you guys think about that? It's a lot. So anyway, so they asked if I could put a little presentation about procurement and what accountants should know. So it was a good opportunity to talk about our profession. So if you think about it right now, if you were to see your young self in procurement and you were to go back to let that person know what you should know, what do you think is important? You go back, huh? Who's been in procurement like 15 years? Okay. What would you tell your younger self about procurement? Like they should know. What do you think?
A lot of reading.
A lot of reading. Yeah, read. What else? Being resourceful. What else?
Common sense.
Common sense. It's a good profession, right? You know, a lot of times people, you don't grow up to be a procurement person. You kind of just fall into the job and then either you love it and you stay 15 years, 17 years, or sometimes people are here for a while, right? So I kind of modified this a little bit because it's not for accountants, because like I said, I had set this up for accountants primarily. So talking to accountants, and I would say that applies to all of us. You know, I think when you're in procurement and you start doing it and you really, really love it, I think we all have kind of some like the same DNA. You know, I did that ancestry DNA. How many of you have done that? You know, I did that ancestry DNA, and it was really interesting because they had in there that I had like 13% Irish. I was all like, what? Irish? I was so excited on St. Patrick's Day. I was so happy because I was Irish. Well, they updated their thing, and now they took it away. I don't have the Irish anymore. I know. I was so happy. But I think we all have kind of the same DNA. We like procurement. People who love procurement. I think we're all the same. And we're similar to accountants because they're looking at a lot of the same stuff that we're looking at. Okay? So, history. You know, we talked about that earlier, about the history of procurement. You know, we're very lucky because our profession actually has a history. You know, there's some professions now that didn't exist not even like 5 or 10 years ago. Like there's a profession where you can be like a social media moderator. Did you know there was such a thing? When I was at New Mexico State University, we had somebody who their whole job is to look on social media and see what's written about the university and actually respond to it, or maybe not even respond to it, ignore it. And there's companies out there that actually monitor, there's somebody monitoring their social media all the time to see what's being written. That's a new job. Was that there 15 years ago? Probably not for Facebook or anything. How about an app developer? There's like an app for everything now, right? That's a fairly new job because probably 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't as many apps. But our profession actually has a history. And we kind of talked about it earlier in the other presentation, how it went from clerical to strategic. How many of you have ever heard of Buffalo Bill? How many of you? Did you know that Buffalo Bill was one of the first government contractors? Did you know he had a contract with the government? He had a contract to feed the forces at that time. Of course, it was in the army or whatever it was. What was it? Anybody? Calvary. He had a contract with the government to feed them. And he was feeding them primarily with cows. And he found out that he could get more meat, guess from where? From buffaloes. So he started changing and started using buffalo for the meat to feed the cattle. So he was one of the original people to have a contract. Did you guys know that? Interesting. So we do have a history in procurement. And you should all know it. You should all know that we did come from clerical and we are all professionals. It is a professional that we are in. It's a profession. Okay. Have any of you ever seen this document? NIGP has a document and it's top 10 things you should know about procurement, and it's a reference guide for elected and senior government officials. This is a very, very good document. How many of you have elected boards? This is very good to give your board when a new board member comes in. At Albuquerque Public School, whenever we have a school election and we get a new board, we get to give them an orientation on what our department does. I give them one of these because it tells them about procurement. Because sometimes you have people come in who've never even heard about procurement. We just had elections. We're going to get a new governor in New Mexico. So we're going to get a bunch of new people, right, in the different agencies. From NFPPA, from my association, we're going to send it to them. So they know about, not just so they know about our association, but 10 good things for them to know. I also share this with my staff. So it's good. If you have a staff, share this with them. Okay? So top 10 list. Kind of like David Letterman, right? Number one, I really tried to see if I could sound like a count, but I'm not good at it, so I won't even try it, but I can just picture it. Okay? So number one, what is your role in procurement? Everybody has a separate and distinct role. The stakeholder has a different role from the elected official to the supplier to all of us. And there should be a separate and distinct role because of separation of duties and internal controls. How many of you have stakeholders who think they're procurement people? Huh? Right? And they're like, no, we don't need 3 quotes. We just don't need this. And you're like, no. How many of you have suppliers who come and tell you, it's sole source. You don't need to go to bid. It's sole source. And I got a letter to prove it. Right? No, they're not procurement people. So make sure that there's a distinct role and everybody understands what their role is. How about elected officials? Should they be involved in the procurement? Maybe or maybe not. Because like in New Mexico, we have a governmental conduct act that has separation of what elected people can do in regards to procurement and what they can't. I'm not sure in Utah if they have. You guys have that. But everybody has a distinct role. Make sure you know it. Okay? Number 2, ethics. In procurement, we always have to be at the highest ethical standard, right? Always. We have to make sure that we do not have a conflict of interest. We don't want to be awarding contracts to our brother-in-law or our sister or, right? In New Mexico, we have the Governmental Conduct Act that really, really has strict rules about that. I don't know, I'm not sure. Do you guys have that in Utah? Do you guys have something like that? And then you always want to avoid the mere appearance. Okay? How many of you go to dinner with your suppliers? And no? No. How about when you go to trade shows? Are you guys allowed to have to get the little trinkets and stuff they give out? Or do they, or you can't get in? $10 limit? At one time? And you meant ours is 25. I know, big spenders. You know, I had a supplier this week. They asked me, can I bring in a box of donuts to your office? Are you guys allowed to get that or not? Yep. So in New Mexico, they let you, like, you can share it. So you can put it out where everybody could, you know, like a box of chocolates, donuts, a cake, whatever, that's fine. But if they came and said, hey, we're now going to give you some concert tickets, could I get those? No. Right? So we have ethics that we have to uphold to, and we have to avoid the mere appearance of doing anything wrong. At the beginning, I know Polly was talking about ethics. There's like an ethical code. I know NIGP has an ethical code, and UPCC has an ethical code. Do you guys have one for your chapter? Or do you just adopt what the national has? You probably do that. Do you guys have an ethical code within your entities? Does anybody have one? See, make sure you know. You need to know that. Most professions have some kind of ethical code. I have 3 daughters. Very proud of my daughters. My oldest daughter is actually a physician. And when she graduated from medical school, they had everybody stand up and they had to take their ethical code. You guys, that's what I thought you guys were going to do a while ago. I was like, oh, good. They had everybody stand up and put up their hand and they had to recite their ethical code when they graduated for their profession. I have another daughter who's a social worker. She's a licensed social worker. When she graduated, same thing. They all had to stand up, put their hand up, and recite their ethical code. My third daughter is an engineer. When she graduated, they all stood up, even engineers, and they had to recite their ethical code. We need to do similar. So everybody stand up. No, not really, I don't want to do it. But I'm just saying, we're professionals. You know, you should at least know that we have an ethical code and know what's in there. Okay? Number 3, procurement authority. Why is it important? Should we have some kind of authority as procurement officers? Should we? Do we? In New Mexico, we have what's called a certified procurement officer that they enacted through statute that gives us authority. And basically, the reason they give it to us is because we're spending public funds, right? And they want to make sure that we have the authority to stop if there's any funny business. That we think there's any type of kickbacks or gratuities or bid rigging, it gives us authority. So do we need authority? We do. Because if not, then you get back to the good old boy days where only certain people are awarded government contracts, right? If we don't have any CNA, are they going, is the department's going to follow what we say? Are they going to adhere to the statute? No. So we have to have some kind of authority. Make sure you find out what authority you have as procurement people. Okay? Number 4, what is the strategic value of procurement? You should know that. And as I had told you, we're evolving from just the clerical to strategic. We should be part of the conversation. whenever there is a major purchase that's going to happen at your department or your entity, you should be at the table. Because you need to be able to help navigate them through the process. How many times do they bring you in at the last minute? You know, right now in schools, what's the big thing in schools right now? What do you guys think? The big thing in schools? Safety, security. In New Mexico, we're getting a bunch of bond money for our schools, and we have a committee that they want to buy all this stuff. You know, they want to buy locks and doors and the cameras and all this stuff. And you know how I found out about it? In the newspaper. I read it, and they're like, you know, Albuquerque is getting, I don't know, 2.5 million. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know about this. So I sent an email to our capital person, and I'm like, should we be talking about any type of procurement issues? And then they brought me in and said, oh no, we forgot, you know, but they were ready to just write a PO. But we need to show our strategic value and say, hey, you're getting this amount. Let's see if we can get more for you, more money for you, more stuff for you with that money. Let us help you. So we need to be a strategic partner. 5, procurement values and principles. Back to ethics. Our profession was built on values and principles. And there they are. Those are the NIGP values and principles. So ethics, we talked about that. Transparency. Everything we need to do needs to be transparent. It has to be basically in a fishbowl. Anybody should be able to look at anything we do. In New Mexico, we have the public information. Do you guys have that here? And basically everything is public information. When I went to Albuquerque Public Schools, because we are the largest employer in Albuquerque and the largest school district in New Mexico, we get public information requests all the time. I had never seen so many in my life. I remember the first week I got there, we got a request that they wanted all our P-card statements for all our users with all the receipts. They wanted to look at everything. So guess what we gave them? All the statements with all the receipts, you know, because we're transparent. Okay, so you gotta remember, transparency, professionalism. We want to make sure that we always conduct ourselves in a professional manner. Service, that we provide a service to the public. We're part of the public service. Accountability, we're accountable for all our actions. You know, when I talk to my staff, the big newspaper over there is the Albuquerque Journal. I tell them to live past the Albuquerque Journal test. What you're doing, if they come and pull it, is it gonna pass even the mere appearance that we did anything wrong? Impartiality. That is so important, because we have a fiduciary responsibility, not just to your entity, but to your vendors. You want to make sure that your vendors get a fair shot. You know, I just did an RFP evaluation for some engineering, and it was on call. It was a specific project. And one of the ladies, she was talking about one of the vendors, and she kept saying, I hope they get a contract. I give them all the points. I hope they get a contract. And you know, when I finally told her, you sound really biased. You know, you're not basing your scores on anything tangible. You're just saying, okay, hope they get a contract. I give them all the scores. And I told her, you know, how fair is that to this other guy? You know, I always have to, you know, I told her, yes, I'm acting in APS best interest, but I'm also protecting the other vendors. I want to make sure everybody gets a fair shot. When I was in Mexico State, I had this one, it was for engineering, I had this one lady, and she was on the committee, and she came and she told me, hey, I really like this vendor. I really, really like him. I said, good. And she goes, can I lobby? Can I go to the other evaluation people and lobby for them? What do you guys think? No. No, I told her no, because how fair is that? Then do these other people get a lobbyist on the committee? No, so we always have to make sure that we are protecting and following that principle, okay? All procurement people should know this. They actually have these, they sell on NIGP, sell these posters. And I actually bought the whole set, and I bought frames for them. So when you come into my procurement office, this is what you see. And I tell all my staff, this is how we conduct ourselves here in my office. And it also shows the vendor community, this is how we operate. So I actually have all. Okay. Number 6, public versus private. Is it different? Yes? A little bit, huh? We want to make sure that we understand the difference between public and private, because a lot of times you're going to get questioned. You know, you might get questioned by a supplier, like, why are you doing it that way? We don't do that in the private sector. You might get from an elected official who got elected but has never worked in government. Why do you do it that way? We always do this. We always do that. We need to be able to be versed to be able to explain the difference. I know we all know it, right? You know, we're using public funds. We have to follow statutes. We have to follow regulations. We have to follow policies, board directives, whatever it is. You know, but primarily because we're using public money, correct? Number 7, your procurement methods. You have to be very, very familiar with your procurement methods. You have to know whenever you're going to make a purchase, there has to be a procurement method associated with it. Is it a small purchase? I'm going to tell you the ones in New Mexico, so it might be different from you guys. Is it a small purchase? Was it purchased because of an award from a bid? Was it purchased because it was an award of an RFP? I understand you can't use cooperatives here, but you can use NASCO, is that right? Did you use a NASCO contract? Is it a sole source? How many of you use sole source contracts? Be careful with those. The federal government is getting very strict with those. Yeah, that's right. They don't like them. And sole source are definitely abused. So be careful with that. In the new uniform guidance, just so you know, if you use sole source, you're supposed to negotiate profit. We're talking about negotiation earlier. If you have federal funds and under the uniform guidance, if you use sole source as your procurement method, you're supposed to have a documented negotiation of profit. How funny do you think that's going to be? Trying to negotiate profit with the vendor. So I was sharing earlier, my goal at my place is 0 sole source. I don't want to have any, because I don't want to have to negotiate profit. So your procurement method. Emergency. Do you guys have emergency here? Yes? What else? What else do I do here that I need to? We do small purchase, bid, RFP, sole source, emergency, cooperative, instruction, construction. What else? Quotes, 3. You guys have to get 3 competitive written. 2? Oh, good. That's nice. You have to get 3. What else?
RFIs.
Professional services? Anything else? Know your procurement method. For my staff, if you guys know, on all our POs, we write it in there. We write our procurement method, and then we write what we use. So that way, the next year, somebody can go back and look at that PO, and we know what we were thinking. They're like, oh, that's what they did. So all our POs have that. When I first went to the department, we had some that were like over $1 million, nothing. No contract, no quote, no procurement method. We had no idea how we got it. So we had to go back and do a bunch of, I used to say, put your investigator hat on, we gotta figure this out. Now we don't do that. Now we put it right in the PO so everyone knows what we did. Transparent. Okay, so know your procurement methods. Emergency management. A lot of times, and I don't know if that's true here, but a lot of times people will come to you and they say, it's an emergency. I need it now. How many of you get those kind of calls? So how do you set up something to help people for emergencies? You need to think about that. I went to a presentation at Forum where they had some procurement people from Florida that were talking about the hurricanes. And they were talking about this exactly. They know the hurricanes are coming, right? They have hurricane season every year. So they have to do emergency management to prepare for it. So how do they do that? They get contracts in place. So they said, well, every time we have a hurricane, we probably need somebody to come and do tree removal. So they get a contract in place for tree removal. They said, oh, we probably need somebody to pick up debris. We need a trash service. So they set up a contract for that. So that's what you need to think about. What are the risks at your entity that if there was an emergency, you would have something in place? Okay? So think about that. Make sure procurement should know that. Because then we can be proactive in getting these contracts in place if there's a fire, if there's a flood, if it freezes. In 2009 or 10, back in Las Cruces, they had a freeze that they hadn't had since like the 1930s. It's like the whole city just stopped because we didn't know how to handle it. We had pipes breaking and flooding, and you would be amazed that like the next day, we have all these vehicles from other states come in. We have all these people from Arizona and Texas come in because we didn't have any of the services there. We had to call all these people in from out of state to help us because it had never happened. You know, sometimes you can prepare, sometimes you can't. Number 9, we talked about this a little bit, the issue of privatization. Sometimes people want to privatize all kinds of stuff. When I was in grad school, I had read this case study where there was an entity in the East Coast that privatized their toll bridge. So they had a toll bridge that people would cross, you know, people pay the toll. Well, they actually were able to outsource it where a company took it over and they would pay what they thought was an estimation of revenue so that the entity could get the money up front. And then they would actually maintain it and get the revenue for the year. So a lot of times there's a lot of public-private deals going out there. At the university at New Mexico State, there was a private-public partnership to put in a hotel. So the university got with the developer and they're building a hotel and they're leasing it to them and the university gets part of the revenue. So you might see more of that where people want to privatize certain things, and you would be involved in it because you have to do the procurement of it. So it's called public-private partnership, PPP. Look into that. It's something in the future. We talk about the future of procurement. That's something in the future. Oh, this is a big one too. The issue of social issues and contracting. Do you think we're involved in social issues, procurement? Yeah? What do you think? How are we involved in it? What do you guys think? Anybody? Investment, green purchasing, environmentally friendly. How about set-asides, like minority-owned business, women-owned business? Sometimes when you get a contract from the government, it will tell you X percentage of this contract should be with contractors that are minority-owned or women-owned. You know, when I worked, I think they said in the introduction, when I worked for a contractor for NASA, and we were running the space shuttle, in our contract, it said a certain percentage of our spend had to be with these types, it had to be Buy American. Is that a social issue? Yeah, and it's in procurement, Buy American, and then it has to be with those type of disadvantaged businesses. What else? What else have you guys seen of social issues? I saw one from Arizona where they said if they bought product that it could not be from a country where they have like sweatshops. They said we don't want to buy any product where if it was manufactured outside of the U.S. that they have sweatshops. That's a social issue. I saw a really interesting one for the county of Bernalillo in Albuquerque. They have something about responsible banking. Where do you think that came from? Responsible banking. Wells Fargo. Is that a social issue? Maybe. So you're going to start seeing, how many of you have buy local preferences? Do you guys have that? We have a New Mexico resident business preference in our statute. Do you guys have that? No? Our city of Albuquerque has a preference in their procurement that you get 1 point if you're a local Albuquerque business. So does the city of Las Vegas. Is that a social issue? Yep, because they're trying to keep the business, the money within the entity. What are some other ones that you guys can think of? I've seen some where they talk about if you subcontract construction, that you have to test them for drugs. And if they don't pass it, they don't get the contract. What do you guys think about that? You know, we talked about it and somebody said, oh, they're opening on roofers or something. So is that a social issue? No. How about like workman's comp or having vehicle insurance that your contractors have to have that? So you can see that in procurement, because it is the expenditure of public funds, you can see more and more of these issues coming into play. So make sure that you're aware of that. I know this top 10, but I have a couple more that I added. Number 11, procurement people should always know the risk associated with procurement. You always have to know about that risk. Number 1 is supplier compliance. Is the supplier going to provide you what you think you're supposed to be getting? Do you guys monitor your contracts? Do you make sure if you ordered 1,000 widgets that you got 1,000 widgets? Contractor compliance. I've seen where some full-blown procurement offices actually have someone that goes out and checks everything on a contract up to closeout. You know, did we get this? Did we get all our warranty? Did we get a certificate of occupancy? Did we get this? Did we get that to close the contract? Delivery compliance. Did it come when it was supposed to be here? Did they said they were going to deliver in 30 days. Did we get it in 30 days? You know, we have a lot of problems with our office supplies. They're supposed to give us 2-day delivery after we place the order. They say within 2 days you're supposed to get it. It's probably really 5 days. You know, we probably don't get that 2 days. And then price compliance. Are they really giving us the price that they said they would? The most difficult of those are when you have contracts that are discount off. How many of you have those kind of contracts? Where it says 15% off janitorial supplies, 10% off of tools. How do you know if you're really getting that? That's something that procurement should be able to have a mechanism to make sure. Number 12, and this was really for the accountants, but it's really for us too. We always have documentation. Make sure and always have documentation for your purchases. Start with a quote. How many of you get quotes? And it starts with a quote. You know, when I started at Albuquerque Public Schools, they weren't getting quotes. How do they know what to enter their rec in for? They used to go to old POs, or they would go and get catalogs, old catalogs. So do you think it was right? You know, I had a vendor call me one time and he said, "Where did you get this part number? That thing has been obsolete since like 2000. And I asked the school, "Where did you get that part number? It's been obsolete since 2000. And they said, "Oh, I just found an OPO and I just copied it." So no, we start our documentation with a quote. We make sure that we have copies of contracts. We make sure we have document our procurement method. If it's sole source, we make sure we have our sole source specification for it. Internal controls. We gotta make sure you have internal controls at your office because it protects you. Do you have the same person set up a vendor who does the PO and then pays the invoice? No. At our office, we have a separate department that sets up vendors. We have a separate who sets up requisitions, sets up different who approves it, and then it goes to procurement. We do our stuff, and then we have a whole different accounts payable. All different people, all different security setups in our computer system. Make sure you have internal controls. You don't have the same people because that's a recipe for fraud. Okay? Segregation of duties is kind of the same thing. We segregate everything. We have internal controls and make sure we get our approval. Matching is really big in accounting. They want to make sure everything matches. If the quote matches the PO, matches what the receiving was, matches the payment. It all matches. That's a very good audit trail right there. Everything's to match. And what I told the accountants is we always have the audit in mind. Is that right? Do you always think, man, we get audited, we gotta make sure we have this. Right? So this is kind of what I told them. We always have you in mind. Everything we do, we make sure that we follow the code, the procurement code, that we follow our policy, that we document everything, that we're transparent, and we have everything for your examination. So you always want to make sure you have the audit in mind. I actually had 4 audits going on a couple of months ago. We had the federal Title I people from DC come in and audit us. We had a food and nutrition federal people come and audit us. We had our external audit, and then we had a special audit from our state auditor. We had 4 going on at the same time. That was a lot of fun. But so far, we have 0 findings. I'm very happy. So, procurement people should always know that. So, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to you guys, and I hope you picked up a little something, either about negotiation or about what procurement people should know. And thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We just want to thank Burnett for taking time to come here today and share with us your wisdom. We really appreciate that. We also want to just express gratitude to Gary Hansen for taking care of our food this year, as well as Gail Christensen. If we could give them a hand. We also, again, just thank you for your participation today and everything you've done for us this year. As a chapter, food is in the back. It is Cafe Rio, and so feel free to go back and take care of that. Thanks, everybody.